Throughout human history, there is always poverty and there's always inequality. Those are common themes, whether you study China, the U.S., or any population group. Poverty can be understood and measured in many different ways. We need to be able to see the inequality that exists and then figure out what tools can be used to address those inequalities. If you don't see it, then you don't address it.
What are some common challenges the U.S. and China face in addressing inequality?
Inequality is a very complex issue. The biggest challenge is how we understand the inequality. There is the visible inequality, right? Something that's measurable. We could capture using, for example, the Gini coefficient. That's something we can agree on. But there's also the hidden inequality that we don't quite capture using data. We don't see, but it exists, and it affects people's perceptions, how they think, and how they live. So I think that's a common challenge for both China and the US. We know a certain level of inequality, which is actually high in both countries, but there's also the layer that we don't know or capture. So I think to really have a full picture of inequality, the extent of it, and in which regards, would be a common challenge for us as researchers to tackle. And then the next step takes political will. I think politically, how we understand inequality, whether politics or the government can play a role in reducing or curbing inequality, is very important. And what are the policy tools that can be used? It could be, for example, education as a way to give everyone a head start so that people's life opportunities can be equalized. Another potential policy tool is taxation. How do we use taxes to reduce or curb income inequality or wealth inequality? I think gender is another important angle. Gender inequality exists in every society, but what can we do? What kind of policies can we put in place to reduce gender inequality is very important. It could be through education, could be through employment opportunities, could be entrepreneurship opportunities. So those are all very important policy tools that could be used. But fundamentally, we need to be able to see the inequality that exists and then figure out what tools can be used to address those inequalities. If you don't see it, then you don't address it.
What are similar themes the U.S. and China see when addressing inequality issues?
There are some alignments between the two countries in some policy areas. For example, a recent trend I see is early education. Both countries now recognize early education investment in children is actually very important for reducing both short-term and long-term inequality. So China now implemented a child benefit that's universal for young kids. And US also experimented with this policy. So I think investing in young children from early on, regardless of your circumstances, is a very smart policy to reduce inequality in the short and long term. So that's one area of alignment that I see between the two countries. The other, I hope, is the climate, because climate affects everyone, and climate is where the inequality happens in the natural environment. I hope there will be ways to collaborate between the two countries in this way, because it will play a major role in reducing long-term inequality, both within the countries and globally. Through research, we know that women tend to be overrepresented in poverty. There's even a term for that, the feminization of poverty, because women tend to be caregivers, so they don't get to participate in the labor market in the same way men do. And the labor market rewards you through the labor market. They give you income and the social security, other benefits. So for women, they are shouldering this unpaid labor at home, caregiving, but they also get a lower return from the labor market simply because they have a shorter participation duration, or there's overt discrimination in wages and pay.
How does social policy impact inequality in the United States and China?
When I was in college, I took a social policy course. And the assignment the professor gave us was to think of somebody, your neighbor, your family member, and figure out what kind of social policies are affecting this person. The person might be in poverty or might be facing some challenges. And that was an amazing assignment. I thought of my neighbor who was faced with chronic disease. She's a mother with 2 children. Her husband had a work-related injury. And the social policies collectively supported the family somewhat, but also failed the family because they didn't get sufficient support in different ways. And as a result, the family continued to live in poverty, and the children didn't get to have best access to education. So I think about that case often. I think social policy research is very powerful because we get to study anything that is directly related to human well-being. Could be housing, could be education, could be healthcare, could be pensions, could be mental health support. And that's related to everybody's well-being, you and me included. So I think as social policy researchers, we know social policy is powerful. And these are different topic areas that my colleagues and I look into. And then we study what's possible, what policy tools work. And then we advocate for policy changes so that they could be translated into actual policies to support people in need, to really enable people to bring out their full potential.
What inspired you to study social policy?
My grandparents are my inspirations for pursuing my work on poverty and inequality in social policy. So my grandmother never had the opportunity to go to school. She was illiterate, but she had the biggest heart. She always cared for people, not only the family members, but also neighbors. One memory I have of my grandmother was we always had beggars who would come to our door to seek food. And she always was prepared to offer some food, even some other items to support these people. And I felt, even as an individual who probably didn't have much, she was able to offer that help and support, to give warmth, to give food to people in need. At the same time, my grandfather was a local official. So in our 3-person household, he always talked to me about local matters, international affairs. So I became his conversation partner. So he gave me this impression that as an individual, you could have a big impact on the world around you, even remote places where things were happening. So I had this impression that social policy or policies are made by people, whether it's local or it's bigger scale. Growing up, and particularly in high school, when I was about to decide what to do in the future, what to major in, I decided I want to do something on social justice. I wanted to major in law, but when I entered college back then, they were starting social work as a field, and they needed a class to study social work. So I, along with 50 plus other students, got picked to study social work. So we became one of the first cohorts in China to study social work in colleges. And in my junior year, there was an American professor who came to guest lecture for us on macro social work. It's really social policy. Her name is Dr. Enid Cox, and she graduated from Columbia University School of Social Work. So she and I bonded, and she told me all about Columbia and said, you should come to study one day. So I decided to apply and came to study at Columbia. So that turned my journey into the U.S., to Columbia, and I became a social policy scholar.